Hey everyone, Evan Kirstel. I am back this time with Ram Venketaramani. I knew I would get the name wrong. I'm sorry. Senior
No.
Director, Edge and Private Mobility at VMware. Ram, how are you?
I'm doing great, Ivan, and I'm really glad to be able to do this session with you.
I'm really excited about this because I've talked to VMware about many different topics, but this is a kind of unique one. Maybe introduce yourself and your team within VMware.
So sure. Yeah, so I'm part of service provider and edge business unit in VMware. So our business unit is primarily responsible for developing technologies that gets delivered to service providers and enterprises through service providers as well. So within that business unit, I'm specifically responsible for developing and delivering solutions for the edge as well as the private mobility offering that we just introduced at VMware Explorer in San Francisco earlier this year.
Yeah, VMware Explorer, that was one of the best VMware events ever. Tell us, that must have been quite a lot of fun for you to present and to engage with the community. What are some of the takeaways from your session there at VMware
Absolutely.
Explorer?
And in fact, it was so nice to be in front of people. I mean,
Yeah.
after the pandemic, we have been mostly doing these sessions over Zoom. I mean, it had its own benefits, but it also, I mean, never got the live feedback from the people. But doing it in person was definitely a major change. Specifically, some of the things that at least I enjoyed talking to many of the customers and also some of the system integrator partners who attended the show was that um, private networking is something that is really catching up. And more importantly, if you just take a step back and look at what is really happening, the overall edge space in itself is really booming, right? There is a lot of the pandemic has resulted in most of the enterprises rethink the way they manage the edge. They are all moving towards automation, which essentially requires gathering of a lot of data, which then needs to be processed in real time. Otherwise, it becomes so voluminous that you cannot send it to the cloud to do further processing. So edge is becoming more and more important. And once you buy into that particular proposition, then the next question comes, okay, now how am I going to provide a more resilient and highly available LAN networking option, which doesn't require me to lay down cables for every single device? Hence private 4G or private 5G kind of deployment opportunities. And every single customer and every single SI that I talked to during VMware Explorer, they all had very dedicated teams focusing on this particular area. So it was very heartening to see the adoption or the interest in this particular area among the industry community.
Yeah, it's a fantastic area to focus on, but in particular, the idea of a managed service for network providers here is really exciting. So, tell us more about this particular offer you're involved with. It's to bring 5G into the enterprise in a very efficient way.
Yeah, thanks for asking the question, Ivan. So, what we did was when we started embarking on this Edge initiative, Ivan, we went out and did a survey with about 300 CIOs across multiple industry spectrum: manufacturing, transportation, warehouse, logistics, retail, etc. And basically finding out from them as to what is their interest level for private 5G and when do they expect to deploy specific use cases on a private network. Uh, and one of the feedback that we got from them was that they are very keen in doing it, but they are hesitant to go and deploy it because they don't feel they have the necessary expertise to deploy and manage a private network, right? Corporate Wi-Fi was probably at that particular level maybe 20 years ago, but private 4G or private 5G is at a similar situation today. That's the reason why we as a company felt that, okay, if we want to really help our enterprise customers, we need to deliver this as a managed service offering. And the advantage that we had, Ivan, was that we already have a platform where we are delivering such a managed service capability to our enterprise customers. I'm essentially talking about our SD-WAN SASE platform, right? So this is a managed services, managed solution. It is primarily delivered through our service provider partners. It could be either a communication service provider or it could be a managed service provider, like the entities of the world, so that's the reason why we said, okay, hey, we already have this mechanism, we have this platform, we have this infrastructure. Why can't we leverage the same infrastructure and extend it to private 5G at the enterprise location? So that's what we did.
Yeah, super exciting and really much needed. I mean, I'm here in Chicago for an event, the
Mhm.
Radiology Society of North America, 100,000 radiologists gathering at the
Yeah.
McCormick
Mhm.
Center here. And, the Wi-Fi is kind of terrible.
Yeah.
And it's kind of best effort, depending on where you are at the event. It's
Mm.
this gigantic venue. Of course, unlicensed spectrum. And Wi-Fi 6 and 7 are going to offer upgrades, but it kind of why it's a great illustration of why managed services and quality and edge analytics are so important to offer a premium experience. What say you?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, it's amazing that you mentioned the radiologist conference, because one of the use cases, at least that we kind of came across, is with an hospital. I mean, the use case is very simple.
Hmm.
Most of these hospitals have some radiology department, right? So it could be a MRI that is being conducted, or it could be a simple X-ray that is being taken. But today, traditionally what happens is it takes about 30 minutes to 45 minutes for that X-ray to be processed, loaded onto the system, and then transported to the doctor's office. I mean, we can talk of all IT integration and whatnot.
You mean like on what, a cassette or some kind of what, a disc, or what are they putting it on?
Exactly, that's what they're doing today,
Yeah, yeah.
because they don't have the processing capability at the radiology department, right? So that needs to be put on a CD, and the CD needs to be carried
Boy,
where the processing happens. So the hospital that we were talking to, what they wanted to do was have an edge compute at the radiology department, so that it can be processed instantaneously and then come and then transported, or basically shipped over to the doctor's office instantaneously. Now it's not instantaneous as immediate, but not 40 minutes either, right? Within two
right.
minutes or 3 minutes time, you should be in a position to send it over to the doctor, so that he can take immediate action, right? So this is more of an edge compute use case. But if you really extend it, what really happens is, now how do you do the networking? Now many of the times you have this radiology department, so it's within the hospital premise, so you can rely on a wired connectivity. But what about mobile use cases, right? What about telemedicine? So when you talk about those kind of scenarios, that's when we get into this private network kind of a use case, providing a additional value add on top of the edge capabilities.
So healthcare, obviously a great use case, much needed as a refresh to their infrastructure. What other, industries or use cases are you seeing most traction with?
So different industries actually. One of the things that recently we came across is remote broadband connectivity, particularly with the recent infrastructure bill. There is a significant emphasis on being able to provide last mile connectivity services for remote households. Now,
Hmm.
these are households which are far apart from each other. So, trying to provide a cable connection or a fiber connection is going to be a very costly exercise. Somebody has to dig for every single house. It's not a scalable proposition. Now, the macro networks, they don't want to go and deploy it in these locations again, because hey, there are not that much density of subscribers, so there is no ROI. So the government is kicking in and providing last mile connectivity over CBRS kind of technologies. So that is one scenario. The other one that I'm seeing a lot is particularly with manufacturing. So in the manufacturing, again, many use cases today rely on wireless connection, but though these Wi-Fi connections are probably not resilient enough. In fact, I was just talking to one of my SI just the other day, and they had a beautiful use case which they have created in their. I mean, it's a demo. It's not really a live production deployment, but nevertheless, it talks about the art of possibility, right? So it's a head-mounted device with a helmet attached to it. So this is more for an MRO kind of a use case, like maintenance and repair operations kind of a
Hmm.
person, right? As he goes to a ONG, it's an oil refinery, and as he walks in, the digital twin immediately tells him the various equipments in the refinery, and identifies any specific equipment which is kind of not operating at its best performance levels, right? So then immediately you walk closer to that equipment, and then the digital twin kicks up, and the visual recognition capability kicks in and identifies the specific pump, and it instructs the MRO engineer as to how to diagnose that particular pump, like switch the oil from the faulty pump to the backup pump, and then drain the oil from the faulty pump, and then open the pump, diagnose the problem, fix the problem. All of this thing is done through the digital twin that he is wearing on his helmet. Now,
Wow.
this is a use case that you cannot do on a wired connection. You can do it on a Wi-Fi, but it's not going to be sufficient, strong enough, because hey, the pump could be in the remotest corner of the refinery. Now, what do you do? So 5G comes in handy over here, and provides the necessary connectivity for this use case.
Yeah, so many opportunities there for the service providers.
Yeah.
And what are some of the benefits in terms of working at the edge at this layer, in terms of analytics and data insights and observability? I imagine, well, I know you guys do a lot there.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks for asking that question, Ivan. So one of the things, I mean, I was just talking to one of the CAOs in actually in the retail industry a couple of months ago, and one of the questions that he asked was, "Hey, I mean, he has multiple islands of devices. So there are some devices that are connected on a wired connection, Ethernet or cable. And then he has another set of devices that are connected over Wi-Fi. And now we are introducing a new connectivity platform, which is a 5G platform. So the question that he had was, hey, how I want to have a universal, holistic visibility of how well my devices are performing, right? I don't want to go into three different dashboards to track the device behavior or collect device statistics, telemetry statistics. So I want to have a single dashboard. And that's what we kind of have with our Edge Network Intelligence product. By the way, that product is again available as part of the same infrastructure, the SD-WAN SASE infrastructure. So with this one, we provide a holistic, not only a device analytics solution, but we also do anomaly detection. Like we kind of record the standard behavior and identify any anomalies from the standard behavior. And if we see any trends going down in the wrong direction, then we have abilities to trigger that. And in some cases, we also have auto remediation capabilities, right? So that's a solution that we have, and it is deployed in several customers worldwide, hospital use cases, factory use cases, and so on and so forth. So that is a piece that I think many of our customers are seeking as an add-on to a private networking offering.
Awesome. So you and I are based here in the US, and of course, VMware is a global company with customers
Mhm.
all over the world. This is a global solution, right? Given the 5G spectrum availability and rollout, so you must be seeing opportunities everywhere.
Yes, exactly. I mean, there are opportunities from various. I mean, I was talking to a customer in Australia, and last week I was in India, and I was talking to a customer in India, and they have very similar use cases as well. I don't know if you know this. There was in India, they just auctioned
Right.
5G spectrum recently, and at least one company got the private 5G spectrum allocated to them. So there are the private 5G is picking up in APAC as well. Like I believe it was Taiwan, if I'm not mistaken,
Hmm.
where they recently launched the private spectrum. So yeah, so it is definitely picking up in a lot of the countries, even in APAC. Like I know Japan and South Korea, they both have dedicated private spectrums already. So that's another
Yeah,
huge growth area
of
for us.
course, ahead of the curve in Korea, as always. Um,
Exactly.
so you talk to a lot of operators, carriers, as we call them here in the US. I mean,
Yes.
the 5G network is, it's kind of, available en masse at scale for consumers, but enterprise is an untapped opportunity. This must be a big revenue stream and an opportunity for the carriers to kind of, show the return on that big 5G investment.
Absolutely. So there are two things, right? I mean, when you talk about the macro network, I think you're
Mhm.
referring to the macro 5G network, right?
Mhm.
So many of the macro so there are two things, right? There is definitely enterprise opportunities on the macro network, like FedEx of the world or the UPSs of the
The
world.
sort of Internet of Things. Yeah.
Internet of Things, that kind of scenario is definitely there. But if you talk to a specific enterprise, like who has either a manufacturing facility, or let's say take an agricultural use case, right? Their macro network is not necessarily helping because
Mhm.
either the coverage is an issue, security could be an issue, or data sovereignty. When I say sovereignty, I'm
Mhm.
not talking about country level sovereignty. I'm talking
Mhm.
about enterprise firewall kind of a scenario. Those are some of the considerations why the customers are seeking a dedicated private network, right? They don't, I mean, but they are willing to take it from the service provider. They just want it to be local for themselves. They don't want the data to go to the public network and then come back, right? They want the data to be totally local to their own premise. So that's another use case that many of the enterprises are seeking right now.
Yeah, and you guys are used to telco grade security. I imagine that's going to be a key selling point to get
Absolutely.
these networks deployed. What are you doing that might be special or differentiated there?
So our stack is built on top of a SASE platform.
Mhm.
Our GM likes to call our solution offering as three Z's, right? Zero
Okay,
trust, zero trust, zero touch, and then zero watt. I think that those are the three things that he
cool.
talks about. So three Z's: zero trust, zero touch, zero watt. So yeah, so that the zero trust is something that is built in as part of the infrastructure itself. So we have a SASE based infrastructure where we provide ZNA capabilities as part of the solution offering. So in addition to private mobility plus edge device analytics, we can also deliver zero trust to the enterprise customers, all on the same platform.
Fantastic. And as a managed service,
And all of this as
how
a managed
easy
service. Yeah,
could that be?
yeah.
Well, congratulations on the solution offering and all the excitement around it. What are you most looking forward to as we run up to the holidays and the new year? Have you finished your traveling for the year? Or do you still have any more trips?
I still have a couple of trips coming up.
Okay.
So hopefully, luckily these are within the country, so I don't have to
Okay.
travel outside. But yes, I'm really looking forward to that scenario. So the one other point I wanted to mention, even which I think I should have mentioned it before, is when you look at the RAN side of the equation, right?
Yeah.
There is we feel there is a lot of innovation that is going on in the RAN space currently, right? So what we therefore feel is that rather than tying ourselves to one specific vendor or one specific technology, we want to foster this innovation. And hence, what we did with our private mobile offering is to adopt the bring your own RAN model. Right, so we are completely okay in collaborating with any RAN vendors. But again, having said that, it is not any RAN because there is
Hmm.
a development involved. In
Right.
order to provide a managed service, we need to have a centralized management console that provisions both the RAN and the packet core.
Oh,
So
wow.
that requires some level of development work or integration work on our side. So while the architecture is not precluding other RAN vendors, today we have about two vendors that we are currently partnering with, and over a period of time we will add more vendors to it because we believe that this RAN ecosystem is an evolving ecosystem and there is a lot of innovation yet to come in this space.
Indeed. And that's the VMware approach, right? Is to be
Yeah,
open and flexible and to work with partners,
exactly.
which you've always done, which is
Yeah,
refreshing in this industry, which in the past has been kind of proprietary and
close.
closed in many ways.
Yeah.
And I assume you'll be talking a lot of this success here in the new year. You're going to Mobile World Congress maybe
Yes.
next
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
I'll be there as well, so I'm sure we can pick up the conversation then.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's
Well,
great. Thank you. Thanks a lot for this
thanks, Ram.
opportunity. It
Thanks
was
for
great
the
talking to
chance.
you. Cheers.
Yeah,
Thank you.
likewise. Look forward to more discussions over the weeks and months. All right, everyone.